Welcome to the Arc of Justice on Brookline Interactive Group's Big TV. I'm Eric Hyatt. Today is the second in a three-part series on the response to anti-Asian bias here in Brookline. My guest today is Chi-Chi Wu. She's one of the founders of BAAFN, the Brookline Asian American Family Network. Chi-Chi serves in the advisory committee in the town of Brookline and is also a Brookline parent who sent a kid through all the Brookline public schools. She's here to talk about BAAFN and the response to anti-Asian bias and violence in our community. I'm really grateful to have her on the show. Please welcome Chi-Chi. If you could please just tell us your name and how you first came to Brookline.
So my name is Chi-Chi Wu. I've been a Brookline resident since 1993. Moved here for work to Boston, that is, and moved to Brookline and been here since.
You know, I ask everyone a little bit, just how specifically did you choose Brookline in 1993 over Newton or Boston or Cambridge, let's say?
It was a guy. Moved in with a guy. Just living in Brookline. Here we are.
Oh, that's a sweet story. No one's given that reason yet. And anything else you could tell us about your family and your interests? You've been in Brookline a pretty long time, but something that the viewers might want to know about you.
So, married the guy, had a kid. The kid went through the entire Brookline public school system. So he's a Pierce graduate, Brookline High School graduate. Let's see what else. I'm sure your viewers want to know the official town title. So I'm a steering committee member of the Brookline Asian American Family Network, which is a group, an informal association founded to support the interest of Asian American and Asian students in the Brookline school system. We really got active in about 2011. So that was when my son was in middle school. I'm also now on advisory committee, and I'm a member of the task force on Reimagining Policing. So I've gotten a lot more involved recently in town stuff, town activity, civic life. I blame Select Board member Raul Fernandez, who asked me to be on the task force. And then as a result of that, I ended up being more active in a whole bunch of stuff.
You know, this is my first time speaking one-on-one with you, but I've certainly been in a lot of different meetings and forums with you. But you probably don't even know the first time I ever saw your face was actually last year when the BAAFN Awards went out to high school students. My good friend Ronnie Balakrishna was one of the people who won that contest last year. And I saw that you've been running a town-wide essay contest for some time now.
Yeah, we have been. This, I think, is our 5th or 6th year. It's a contest we run for high school students in Brookline about what it means to be Asian American. The organizer for the last few years has been Shulan Cheng, who just does an absolutely amazing job of running the essay contest, and all thanks and credit should go to her and the judges as well that work so hard on the essay contest. And I'm going to put a promotional plug in right now, if that's okay. The award ceremony for the essay contest is going to be May 5th. It is going to be virtual, of course, this year. And so you'll be able to either sign up. I think the notice will go out on our listserv, or it's already gone out on our listserv and Facebook page. It'll also be broadcast on Big. So, come join us, hear the students read their essays, because they're incredibly powerful. It's wonderful to hear from the young people. And we will also have a speaker, because it's our May is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And so it's our May API Heritage Month event. And we're going to have the speaker, who's a Brookline High School graduate and a commentator for ESPN. We'll also have the new incoming superintendent, Dr. Guillory, who's going to say a few words. So we're really excited, and we hope folks join us for the event. It's going to be really
Cool.
great.
I'll make sure we put up the link as part of the show. That's the magic of television. We can actually put up links while people are talking, so that'll be nice.
Cool.
Great. So, I mean, we'll come back to BAAFN a little bit later. The organization, I'm so interested in its history, and but I wanted to get right into the heart of the topic today, which is, I guess, for our viewers maybe who don't know the full story, what are some of the issues going on specific to the Asian experience in Brookline and nationwide as well?
Yeah, it's been a really tough time for the Asian American community, both in Brookline and nationally. As we say, there have been two pandemics for the Asian American community. Of course, the first one is COVID-19, but the second one is a wave of anti-Asian racism, hate, and violence, actually, across the country, directed at the Asian American community because they wrongfully blamed Asians and China for the coronavirus. And of course, a lot of that was stoked, unfortunately, by our former president, who would go around saying things like China virus and Kung flu and all these awful, awful things. And, he liked to stoke hate. And part of it was directed at our community. And so we've seen a 150% increase in anti-Asian incidents that have been submitted to the group Stop AAPI Hate. There's been violence nationwide. Of course, the most prominent example is what happened in Atlanta with the mass shootings. But even before then, we've seen stabbings and, shoving elderly who then died of their injuries. I mean, it's been really horrific.
I'm sorry that our community is going through this, and I'm sorry that Asians are being targeted. I guess the question comes down to what is the response? For example, you mentioned BAAFN as an organization that is doing something. I'd love to give you a little time to just talk about the response, either through BAAFN or other organizations in Brookline, what people are trying to do to push back.
So in Brookline, Brookline is not immune to national trends. And so we have been working hard to try to prevent and address this issue. And we started actually back in April of 2020. So with the support and encouragement and help of Select Board Member Fernandez, as well as Select Board Member Heather Hamilton, organized a virtual town hall on anti-Asian racism. We worked with the schools so that the former interim superintendent and BAAFN and the Brookline Educators Union issued a statement supporting the Asian American community, because really the first thing we thought of, given our focus, is the schools. I mean, our main thing is to make sure to support our kids. And we wanted to make sure that once students were back in person, that our kids didn't face bullying and racism because of being Asian American. So we helped draft and issue that statement. And then we started working on a curriculum for high school students to address anti-Asian racism. And the curriculum was a 9-day series meant to be shown in advisory. It included some videos, one with a skit, a bunch of interviews, and then a written curriculum about Asian American history. What are the stereotypes? What is the historical view of anti-Asian racism? What's wrong with the model minority myth? What's a microaggression? And that was meant to be rolled out in advisory, so that we spent months working on that with some great students, BHS alumni, young people, because we figured the young people should create this because the young people be watching it. They don't want to see a bunch of old fogies like us talking, right? They want to see their peers. And so we had recent BHS alumni prepare it, produce it, that is, the videos. And then Atlanta happened. And, first major mass shooting in months, and very horrific. The response of the community was definitely positive. I mean, the schools reissued their statement. The select board issued a statement. Susan Park, who I believe is going to be part of your series here, she organized a huge sign-on statement. Hundreds of people signed that saying, they're opposed to anti-Asian racism. And so that was all very positive and gratifying. There was a standout at BHS organized by the high school. The students then organized a vigil about a week and a half later. Very well attended, a lot of prominent folks, a lot of folks showed up. So the support has been good, but we want to push it further. I mean, statements of support are great, but we want meaningful, long-lasting change. And so what we've been advocating for is sort of a list on the school side and a list on the town side. And the school side is really critical. And it's being led by Alicia Hsu, one of our steering committee members, who's a former Lawrence school teacher and is just absolutely dedicated her life to kids and to teaching. And she's been working with the school to get this curriculum implemented properly. It was rolled out for a couple of days. There were some hiccups, and so they're still working on it to translate it to middle school. Because what we started hearing is a lot of the anti-Asian bullying happens not in high school, but in middle school.
Huh.
Yeah, and it's in middle school, you really need to educate the kids. Hey, don't do that. That's racist, or don't do that. That's a microaggression. And so we're working on translating it to middle school. We're working on assembling books about Asian Americans for the elementary schools, for the lower grades. So much of it is really about education to make young people aware that there is this history of anti-Asian racism, what the stereotypes are, what the model minority myth is, and why it's so harmful. We really believe education is key. And so she's been working with the schools. We also put out a list of things that the town could do to better support Asian American residents, because I keep saying this, and I'm going to keep saying this so everybody in Brookline hears it. We are 17% of the town population. That's more than 1 in 6 residents. We are 20% of the students in school, 1 in 5 students. We're the largest minority in Brookline. And we really should be demanding the services and the attention that the largest minority in Brookline deserves. So in terms of the town, we are asking for, as part of any effort to increase social services, and I don't know if you've had anybody on talking about this, the Raul Fernandez's Brookline Forward proposal as part
Not
of the
at all.
Reimagine task force.
I'd love to hear about that.
So as one of the recommendations that came out of the task force Reimagining Policing was the idea of improving social services. So moving the social worker position from the police department to a social services department and putting a bunch of different departments under this rubric of Brookline Forward. And, it would include, new offices as well to support immigrants and refugees and LGBTQIA residents. And so as part of that proposal, we'd like to see a social worker or some sort of social services person dedicated to the Asian American community who could provide culturally competent services and be bilingual in one of the major Asian languages spoken in town.
Wow. That's a long list of amazing changes that would need to be made in Brookline. It's fantastic to me that you're coming up with something. I was lucky enough to attend a vigil at BHS. That was a very beautiful and meaningful event. And I especially was touched by the Asian seniors of Boston when they got up together as a group. That was just something really magical to see. I was wondering if seniors in Brookline in the Asian community have a similar group, or is that sort of the group that covers Brookline?
So that is a wonderful group, and it is spearheaded by Brookline residents. So one of the leadership is Shulan Cheng, who I mentioned earlier. She's on our BAAFN steering committee. She runs the essay contest. She used to own a frame shop in Washington Square. I think she's still there, was there part-time before the pandemic. She's one of the leadership as Stephanie Fan, who was the speaker, who was absolutely incredible and is a longtime Brookline resident as well. And yeah, I was really moved by what Stephanie had to say, that, she's like, I have been dealing with this for decades. We have been fighting these fights for decades, and here we are, and we're still fighting them. And that perspective is really important and critical. And I'm so glad they are forming this group to focus on AAPI seniors. We do have a fair number of AAPI seniors in town, and we need to better serve them. I know the senior service does have, groups and activities for AAPI seniors, but a lot of the seniors are limited English proficient. A lot of the Asian American residents, I think their census data showed something like 3,600 or about 12%. No, 6%. Anyway, there's a large number. There's 3,600 AAPI residents who are limited English proficient, and we need to better serve them, because not only is it good policy, but there's actually legal requirements. I mean, there's this thing called Title VI that you're supposed to provide language access if you receive federal funds, and I don't think we're doing a great job. That's one of the things BAAFN is asking for, both on the town side and on the school side, better language access. And I was really disturbed when the head of the select board, in response to that demand, said, well, we have the AT&T language line, or we have a language line that the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations has. And we can just provide that to more town departments. It's like, no, the language line is not enough. First of all, you need written translation. If someone is limited English proficient, they get a notice in the mail in English about some sort of, zoning issue or some issue that affects them. They need language access for that notice.
That's really, really interesting. I lived in Japan for about 7 years, and Tokyo is so nice. They have so many categories of recycling that they provide the recycling data in 30 languages to make sure that everybody can comply with the different information. That's like a matter of course for them to do that. They understand that they have people of different language competencies living there. It struck me as like the easiest thing Brookline could do would be to provide clear instructions on issues like voting, recycling, trash pickup in those different languages. I'm really pleased that you're advocating for that. As a linguist, I just love the idea of getting people information in their own language so they feel more connected.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember now that you are a linguist, and so you understand the importance of this. You understand why the language line isn't sufficient. You understand that using Google Translate to translate written documents is not sufficient, which is something that is done in this town.
You could end up with such bad results, at least in Japanese. I haven't looked in Chinese, but I've looked in Japanese. It is quite bad. You can be absolutely rude or communicate the opposite of what you mean if you just stick it through Google Translate.
Right.
Google Translate's fine as a basic tool, but it's not useful for communication, outbound communication. I do want to ask, you are one of the more high engagement people that I have had on the show. I'm so grateful to you for your activism and your service. What would you suggest for viewers of this show, because this show has viewers all throughout Brookline who may have a low level of community engagement currently? What are a couple of things that they could do right away to start showing support and solidarity and start changing the situation on the ground here in Brookline?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you, Eric. Thank you for having me on the show. I didn't say that at the top of the show, and I really should. Always grateful to get a platform to talk about the needs of Asian Americans in town. I think for folks who don't have a lot of bandwidth to be actively engaged, there are things that you can do to support the Asian American community. Just learn a little bit about some of the things that I've talked about in the show. So learn about the experience of Asian Americans historically. What was the Chinese Exclusion Act? What was the Japanese American internment? What is the model minority myth? What is the perpetual foreigner syndrome? Why it's not okay if you ask someone where you're from and they're Asian and they say New Jersey, don't ask where you're really from. If you have kids, educate your kids. That's probably the most important thing. I just saw this article that was really sad in the Boston Globe that the data from the Boston public schools is Asian American families are the least likely to send their kids back full time. Only 35% are planning to send them back full time on April 26th when in-person opens again. As compared to something like 50 or 59% of Black and Latinx residents and 70-ish for white residents. And one of the reasons is that they're concerned about racism and bullying. And so what can folks who are not AAPI do? And those with kids, really important to talk to your kids. Hey, don't do this. Don't, here are the things not to do with your Asian American classmates. And that's very simple, but it's really profound. I mean, we have been hearing about incidents as I said, in the middle schools, and it's important for both the schools and the parents to communicate this is not acceptable.
Thank you. I do want to bring up one more topic that it wasn't on our list of topics, but the Lunar New Year was a really interesting change that came about in Brookline this year, recognizing it as a holiday. And also there was some, misconceptions or maybe almost backlash about that. How did that experience go from your perspective?
So first of all, I should thank the students, again, who made it possible for a Lunar New Year to be designated a Category 1 holiday. Ashley Eng, who spearheaded that with Sabrina Joe and some other students. They also were two of the lead organizers for the vigil, by the way, along with the current BHS students. And I mean, the young people just are so impressive. They really, really give me hope. So when they were in high school, along with their peers, put together this campaign to get the Lunar New Year designated Category 1 holiday. In fact, Ashley produced a video about the history of it, which if your viewers haven't seen, they should go look up because it's a very short video and it's wonderful. So we were all excited. In fact, our BAAFN Lunar New Year event, which was virtual this year, one of the themes was celebrating this fact that it was the first year Lunar New Year was recognized as a Category 1 holiday. And it's really important. It's really important because it allowed families to properly celebrate the Lunar New Year, which is a huge deal. As you probably know, if you've been in Asia, it's a big deal, the Lunar New Year. I know Japan doesn't celebrate it, but you've got China and Korea and Vietnam. So what happened was on the Brookline Public Schools Facebook page, which is often a very active page where a lot of people express their opinions, somebody posted that they were very upset that it was a category that that there would be no school that day. And it's part of this controversy going on about, parents who want more in-school time versus remote learning. And, they were upset to lose one more day of in-school time and not recognizing the importance of the Lunar New Year. And, some parents actually trivialized it. And that was kind of upsetting. And some of us pushed back in the comments. And I usually don't like to get involved in the comment wars on these public Facebook pages, but this one was important. And so we pushed back and posted Ashley's video. And I think it helped educate folks the importance of the Lunar New Year to the Asian American community. And I hope at this point there's enough awareness that we don't have a similar situation next year.
Thank you. I think it's absolutely amazing that we're one of 3 communities in the country that have formalized this as a Category 1 holiday. That's just remarkable. And I will be having Ashley on my show next week to talk about those efforts.
She's wonderful.
series. I'm very excited to have
Mhm.
some of the activists in town, but you have all been extremely busy lately with this stuff, with activism, with pushback, with rabble rousing. So it's been hard to get you all on the show. I'm really excited it's finally happening. Um, Before we wrap up, is there anything, Chi-Chi, that we didn't cover today that you would like to share with our viewers? And if you have something to plug, feel free. We can put up some links too.
I would just ask viewers to take a look at our website and the materials we've put up, in terms of educating themselves about Asian Americans and what the history is. There's some materials on our website. Come and attend our virtual essay contest award and AAPI heritage event. Support us when we're asking for things like a language access plan, a needs assessment and plan, or on the school side, an AAPI scholars program. So yeah, we, we are one of the few communities that celebrate the Lunar New Year. We hope that more join us. But we're here, and we intend to be active as the largest minority in Brookline.
Amazing.